We've spoken about how good a power wheelchair can be and how it can really improve someone's independent mobility. But none of that means anything if it only means we can drive around the house or maybe up and down to local shops. So here are some strategies for clients that need to go further. Number one is to get a modified vehicle. Now that is when you get a van and it gets modified to be able to drive the chair into the back of the car and tie it down with some tie down points or a docking pin. The downside about this is that it's quite an expensive option and not accessible to absolutely everybody with a disability. Number two is use public transport. Now most train stations do have elevator access and a ramp for people with wheelchairs to go onto the train. Same goes for buses, they can be lowered down. Public transport isn't always accessible to everybody. Definitely a consideration to look at if you're trying to look at a wheelchair for mobility. Number three is what's most important most of the time. Now, if you've got a client that wants a portable device so they can independently mobilize when they're out in the community, that is great. But if that comes at the cost of their posture because they're sitting upright all day, if it comes at the cost of their accessibility because they can't go up and down curbs and gutters and cross roads, or go up down steep hills or their driveway, whatever it may be, if that's the case, then it might be worth considering a power wheelchair for 90% of their mobility, which might be indoors and to and from their houses here and there. And then on those odd times where you've got a day or two where you need to go to the shops or whatever, you might want to consider something like just a basic manual wheelchair like this that we can put into the back of the car, pop the cushion on there, maybe even be able to pop the backrest on there with a second set of hardware, and then have someone push the person, which then they would become dependent on their mobility, which isn't great, but at least it means they're independent in their mobility 90% of the time. At least it means their posture is supported 90% of the time. It means they can use seat elevate, or they can use tilt or recline or elevating legs. Whatever it is that they need from a power chair, they can get that most of the time. And we forego the mobility, the independence when you go out into the shops because we can't put this into the back of a car. Fourth consideration is for kids and their early intervention. Now, parents will often want to just chuck their kids into a stroller or a manual wheelchair because there is so much going on in their lives and it's hard to add the complexity of a power chair. Completely understandable. But what an option might be is to leave the power chair at the school. So on the weekends and at home, mum and dad can continue to use the stroller, continue to use the tilt and space chair or the manual wheelchair, whatever they're using, but then the child has independent mobility in the school. And they can do that up until they're 18. Just leave the wheelchair at school, and when we're 18, we can cross the bridge when we come to it. But something's better than nothing. No matter what, when we go into a power wheelchair, there's going to be a disruption to our lives. But there's also going to be a lot of benefit to the lives. So balancing the two is going to be a really important task when you're deciding whether or not to go into a power wheelchair.